for sure. Hello and welcome to Apex Instant Tips episode number 173, brought to you most Fridays at 12:05 Eastern Time. We are your hosts. I'm Anton, and I have with me...
And I'm Hayden.
Yeah.
An honor to be replacing Marwa this week.
Well, Hayden, it is most excellent to have you back with us today. I particularly invited you because today's tip is a follow-on to our very first episode, 172 shows ago. And I'm sure you remember that first episode like it was yesterday.
Of course. I mean, we started with our strongest tip, and the show has been downhill since then. So
this is true. This is true. So why don't you just give me a really quick recap of, a really quick recap of what that first show was.
For sure. It was user preferences and how you should use them instead of jerry-rigging your own solution for storing things like nicknames and report preferences and stuff like that.
That's right. And I'll say one of the things that we pointed out is that a good way to decide when you should use a preference is if it's really related to the application in some way. You mentioned nickname. Nickname could go either way, right? It could be something you want to store on the person's profile table, but it could be something that just the way they want to be addressed in the application. Color scheme, what's color scheme they want, what the sort order of a report is, those kinds of things are the reason to use preferences. And you don't need your own table for it. It's built right in. All kinds of features associated with preferences. So
yeah,
that's
different preferences will have different scopes of applicability.
That's right. That's right. And the other thing, just to recap, before we jump into today's tip, you should go back and watch episode 1. It was, as you said, the pinnacle. It's been downhill ever since. But the other thing that we pointed out is that preferences are workspace wide, right? So when you create a preference called color, that preference, it doesn't matter what application you're in, when you say, what's Hayden's color preference, you're going to get that back. You can set it in application 1, 2, 3, and then you can request that preference in application 4, 5, 6. You're going to get the same thing.
That's right, which is either a feature or a bug, depending on your intentions.
And that is today's tip. Let's jump right in. I'm going to share my screen, and we'll walk into it a little bit. Mark has never logged into my application before, and so he has no preferences. I'm going to do a quick run of that. No data found. Mark has no preferences. Now, many people may think that they don't use preferences. This may be their first introduction to preferences at all, but I'm going to tell you, you might think your application doesn't use preferences, but boy, are you wrong. You are all using preferences. So let's have Mark log in. Mark's going to log in. Mark, log in. Oop, I forgot to set the timer. Here we go. Okay, so Mark has logged in. Let's look at this. He ran page 1, and what do you know? Mark has 2 preferences already. And these are the preference names, FSP, blah, 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 FSP, blah, 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 blah. And they're listed as a classic report preference and an interactive report preference.
Interesting. So if it were a blank page, he wouldn't have preferences, but because on page 1 you have these 2 reports, he has preferences, whether he knows it or not.
That's right, exactly. And in fact, if I go to page 2, he's going to get another preference because there's an interactive report on this page. If I go to this page, page 3 or page 4, he's going to get another preference. So he's now going to have 4 preferences because Apex under the covers uses preferences all over the place. You can see this, as it's not surprising, is an interactive grid preference. This is a this is an interactive report preference, and this is a sort preference. That's an FSP. So you can see right there, flow sort preference. So,
and of course, preferences. related to what you were saying at the start, these are named such that the scope is very clear. It's with the IDs there, there's no possibility that they'll be applied to a different report.
Exactly. And that is today's tip, generally speaking, that you want to consider the scope of your preferences. I'm going to go back to here and say, I'm going to give this person a color preference and a nickname preference, Mark. We'll just call him MK. And I'm just going to do those. I'm going to apply those two preferences. And those are going to show here, if I look at just user preferences, those two preferences are going to show because those are the ones I have set. So Mark is now going to have two preferences, a color and a nickname. Okay. But this right here, it's very possible that somebody else in this application or a different application could reuse this color name and reset my preference, even though I may only want this preference to apply to this page. I might really want this to be the color of page 1, not the color of page 5.
So page 1 color might be a better name for this preference.
Right. So we could come here and we could call, instead of this being a preference of just color, oops, where is it? We can make it P1 underscore color. And that's a pretty good start. But I mean, and people are going to say I'm being crazy picky, but it's possible I have another application that has page 1 and has a color on it. So if I want to be really sure, I can say application ampersand app ID dot P1 underscore color. If I do that, now I'm really going to be sure I have it. And so I'll do that there. If I do that there, I have to do it in the corresponding process. So I'm going to name this that way as well. Now, when I save that and run it, I'm going to get this. My color will know, well, it's already there, but I'm going to apply that, and then we will come back here, run it. Now I'll have a really unique application ID and color name. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a valuable tip. You want to anticipate the scope of your preference before you name it.
I think that's it. And I think nickname might actually be okay, but maybe not. And one reason it might not be okay is because if you have two different applications and they have different authentication schemes, application 1, 2, 3 might have somebody named Mark that's actually a different person than application 3, 4, 5 because they've authenticated in different ways.
Right.
So you really need to understand that your username plus preference name, is going to define this. And that's going to bring us, I think, to the end of our 5 minutes, and we'll have to address what I just said in our Apex Flex. So it's a new segment. I'm going to call this a win. Everything we've said so far is true, and it's probably as far as anyone ever needs to go. You should name your things appropriately.
So you're saying that the rest of the show is going to be a bunch of useless, overly technical content?
I'm going to say it may have a use, but it's very technical. It is something that if anyone that's viewing this already knows this, I will absolutely give up my seat as host of this show for at least one episode to that person.
A high stakes. Okay.
if anyone can tell me honestly that they know what I am about to say, that they already knew what I was about to say, they will absolutely get a spot on this show. I will give it up. They can do it with Marwa or somebody, but this is super complicated. Okay, so you can see, I'm going to give two flexes here. We'll see how long it takes to do them. We were just talking about mark plus color equals this, or mark plus this equals this. So we can agree that I think these are all the columns in this view. If I put color and I do the same thing, if I do this process right here, it's going to set that, and it doesn't matter what page I put this on, doesn't matter what app I put this on, it's going to set that, it's going to overwrite this right here, this one. Right?
I mean, that seems like the implied design, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to put that back to color just to be able to make my point a little bit better. So here's color. I'll put that there. I'm going to return here. I'm going to put this to color here as well in the source. Okay. So now we're really just talking. Oops, how did that become lowercase? That was weird. So there we have color. Maybe I hit like a shift key or something. Okay. So basically, this should always be one of each of these things. But look at this. This user Homer has 2 color and 2 nickname. And this is this flex that everybody is going to be, they're going to be so wowed by this, they're not going to believe it.
So when Homer logs into a workspace, which color preference applies to him?
That's a good question. And which nickname applies? Shall we try it? Let's try it. So, and I actually don't know, but I'm gonna log in as Homer. So we're gonna change this. We'll log in as Homer, and it looks like it's color 71010 and the H-man. So the H-man in this one. Why isn't he getting the other one? That's the question. And the answer is incredibly obscure. But Apex has a very little known feature called the app tenant ID. When you create an app tenant ID, you're just, the main thing that's happening with an app tenant ID is you're just setting the tenant, right? And you can't reset it. Once it's set for a particular Apex session, it's set. And the idea is that you could, across all of your tables, you could add an app tenant ID column, and you could do some sort of row level security, VPD, or real application security that says, I can only see things in my tenant. As it turns out, Homer is in 2 tenants, a tenant with no name and a tenant with the name Anton. So if I change Homer's tenant to the Anton tenant, he's going to change from this and this to this and this, just by setting the tenant. So let's go ahead and do it. It's tricky. But if I change this tenant ID to Anton, these should change. Let's see if it works. Oh, did it? They didn't. Maybe, I think, and I'm not going to be able to do it. He's going to have more now, because if I apply this, because I think before I did it uppercase, not lowercase. If I apply this change, so let's do this. Let's call it home, and we'll give it another color, red, whatever. So now when I apply this, and now when I come back here, Homer, I think is going to have 3 of each. Oh, no. Oh, I think maybe I didn't get it each time.
Well, I think one of them was obviously Anton. Like you were maybe already in the Anton.
I think it was, yeah, maybe I was already in. I'm going to say I don't know what I did here wrong, but and now I can't change it, but let's do this again. Let's bring Homer in again and set the tenant ID. So we'll come back in. We'll say Homer one more time. This is and I'm going to change it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the tenant ID. Set that, and now I'm going to apply these. Let's see. I'll do an orange color or something. I'm going to just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here to make it really obvious. Now, if I've done everything right, you know what? I think I set the template. So let's see. If I've done everything right, Homer should have.
There we go.
So there we have it. So now he's got 3. And when you do the get preference API call, you get it for the tenant you're in. So if you don't have a tenant ID set, you'll get the one that's not set. If you have a tenant ID set, it will be the one that is set.
So it definitely feels like an oversight that this view, Apex Workspace Preferences, doesn't include the tenancy.
No, I agree.
But other than that, like, this is actually an advertisement for a sophisticated feature that the Apex Workspace offers, which is tenancy.
Right. And as you can see here, this is using right here, this is using the preference. Let me just show really quickly that that SQL. Sorry. This is using get preference. So this get preference is respecting the tenant ID. You can see it right here. It's giving us the ones for the tenant ID that we expect. So so that's a little bit of a thing there. But I think that this is valuable, but I don't think anyone knows about it.
Well, so that was flex number one. I think you said you had 2 flexes.
I do. I have 2 flexes. So as we saw, these are the things that are user preferences. These are the preferences I set, right? So if I uncomment this, well, let me do this, where preference comment not equal to that. So these are the things that Apex sets, right? Right here. But one of these is one that I set, not Apex. Look at this one right here.
Over.
Yeah. This right
these
here.
Are all interactive report, classic report preferences.
Right, exactly. Except this one, not this one. I set this one. And because the reason is that the way Apex decides it's a classic report or an interactive report or whatever these things are here, these last 2 columns, it just looks at what how it's named, and it gives it this moniker. So if you name something in sort of this format, it's going to think it's a preference type of classic report, even though it's not. So all I did was
guess that by looking at the other preference names.
I'm going to say one could possibly look at the view and figure this out. I don't know that you're really supposed to be digging around in the Apex code to figure this out, but one might be able to look at the view Apex Workspace Preferences and understand that view looks something like this. If one were to look at that view, they might see something like that.
But theoretically, you don't need to look at the view. There's a pattern that one could spot.
One could figure that out. That's what that is. So that is flex number 2. That and this is not valuable at all. Everything else we've said. This is not flex. This is purely a flex.
So there's no upside in tricking the Apex engine into thinking that a preference is a classic report store preference when it is.
None at all. I will say I'm going to respond to. There was one question that we had in episode 1, 172 episodes ago, that we said I'm about 80% sure that yes, you can export preferences. Turns out yes, you can. You can export preferences. Unfortunately, you can't just do it here, right? You can't just do, because you would need the tenant ID to actually get it from here. But if you export a workspace, do a full export, it mentions preferences right here in the help. It takes user preferences, and in fact, I checked. It does. They are in there, and they bring the tenant ID along with them. So when you do an export of the workspace, you can get the preferences. So
nice. Another cool feature.
Yes. So that was fun, Hayden. Super glad to have you back in the fold this week. I think that's all.
This was super easy for me. I just had to show up for 5 minutes. And I'm very impressed with the esoteric flexes that you found.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to anybody that has watched the show telling me honestly that they already knew about the app tenant ID. If you already knew about the app tenant ID, please let me know. I could definitely use a break, and I would be happy to let you take my spot for a week. All right, Hayden, I'm going to point out Marwa gave a shout out to you in the comments.
I saw that, yes. More than a few people were kind enough to welcome me.
Yes,
So
yes, a few
thank you
others
to
as well.
everyone who gave me a shout out.
Oh, yes, I see a few others. Excellent. That's very nice of everyone. Thanks, Fernando and Rich and Juno, I think we mentioned. Matt. Yes, okay. Not the user preference. So good, good. Thanks, Matt. All right. Well, I guess people need to do all the things that they're supposed to do. Send a letter to your mom, tell her about the show, like, subscribe, any of that kind of stuff. Do people still do those things? I don't know.
Who knows?
Talk to you later.
See you guys.